City of Lies is a movie that explores the murder of Christopher Wallace. Johnny Depp plays Russell Poole, the lead detective in the Christopher Wallace murder, and Forest Whitaker plays Jack Jackson, the reporter who also for many years was investigating the case in his own way from a journalistic perspective, but wrongfully reported on the murder. And it's about these two humans' lives and how they intersect. I was always very attracted to characters in particular that were human, and in being human, they were flawed. These concepts of humanity and flaws are very important in characters we portray in our film because they're relatable. We can connect with them and we can live vicariously through them, especially when you're telling this hard-hitting story that deals with an investigation of a murder and many of the things that are and are not proved, and trying to get the truth out there and trying to get justice for Voletta Wallace, Miss Wallace, and her family. You have to show all the human characters and the human sides.
I got called into a road rage incident 8 miles northeast from where Christopher Wallace, the notorious B.I.G., had been gunned down 9 days prior. I didn't connect the two at first, but when I did, I lost everything that mattered.
I really only wanted Johnny Depp for this role. I knew there was a version of Russ Poole in someone else's hands that was just potentially boring and uninteresting. And I knew in Johnny's hands that would never be the case.
I played Detective Russell Poole, who, when he became an LAPD officer and then a detective, he could not comprehend the idea that an officer, a brother officer, could be an enemy in any way. Then he was put on the Biggie Smalls murder, and they started to dislike him very quickly because he was getting too close to the truth.
I felt in getting to know Johnny, there was a real innocence. And I feel like what Johnny was attracted to in this story was he's a big believer in just truth and justice, simplicity. And when you take all that and you understand, he looks at it through this innocent lens. I felt that the role of Russell Poole was a fit just like a glove.
He had an almost obsessive relationship with the truth, and then his dedication, his utmost dedication to Voletta Wallace, Biggie's mom. They got very close, and he always promised her, I'll do it, I'll find him, I'll get him, but he found too much. He pretty much had cracked the case. Brought it to the LAPD. They laughed him out, and he left the LAPD and spent the next 20 years obsessing and trying to get his story out. There were demons in him. They were going, just walk away, man, you know? But he didn't.
At shortstop, number 29, Russell Poole Jr.
He lost his family, he lost his job, he lost his world. Based on this case, he made great sacrifices. That's admirable, you know?
So, and I think I gave, you gave a left look.
Johnny said to me, I have an allergy to formula. So he didn't want to step into the role in the shoes of Russ Poole where it was like, I'm just gonna play a straight detective. He really wanted to approach it almost as if the character in a way was high functioning. He wanted to bring an element that wasn't formulaic to the role. So we really batted around and worked it to try to figure out, how could he drop in and not give something disingenuous to Russ's character that didn't exist, but something that made it interesting enough. Because when you watch great actors, what makes them great is you don't know what they're going to do next. That's what makes them so brilliant. And I think Johnny really tried to bring that element to the role.
Can I help you?
Oh, I'm Darius Jackson. I wanted to talk to you about the murder of notorious B.I.G. I'm a journalist.
Jackson is a made-up character. But he's kind of a made-up character that's necessary because Poole's going through something very serious, very intense, and he's got no one he can go to. There is not a soul he can go to. And even Jackson, when he forces himself into Poole's existence, Poole is still unaccepting. So the character of Jackson, I think, was important to give Poole someone to bounce things off of.
How do you make sense of all of this unorganized bullshit?
But when he bounces these things off of him, Jackson is highly insulting to Poole, and they have some really intense fights.
Your theory was completely wrong.
Yeah, well, the Peabodys would disagree with you, wouldn't they, on that?
The Peabodys?
Yes.
So you equate life and death with a fucking awards show.
Jack Jackson's a man who was very lost. He had not gotten over the mistakes of his past, and I think he felt like a fraud. He was a man trying to find himself, and actually I think what was driving him to resolve the Christopher Wallace murder was his own ego, and was what was inside of himself to make himself feel whole. It was very selfish, not selfless. Whereas Russ Poole was the opposite. He was approaching it from a selfless perspective. They were polar opposites in that way.
For me, Jackson is the alter ego of Poole, but almost the pessimistic side. Almost like Poole facing a side of him that he is not and refuses to be. And Jackson is looking at a version of himself that he could never be. He doesn't have that purity, that belief that you can make a difference, one man, you know.
Forrest has this gravitas as a human being that is undefinable. Forrest also, for me, I said to him, you're the greatest silent actor I've ever seen in my life.
I'd hate to tell you this, but Edwards took you off the Biggie retrospective.
His ability to emote with saying nothing is unbelievable. And he's just a really special, deeply sophisticated, deeply emotional, deeply layered human being who there's just so much going on with him, and he needs to do so little to evoke that.
I think Forrest has an incredible observation of the human animal, you know. And I think Forrest is a great interpreter of emotion. What he does in this film, he becomes so dedicated to waking Poole up, but it is his own journey. I thought Forrest's performance and his choices were spot on, but so spot on that they were certainly choices I couldn't have predicted.
Johnny's creative process is spur of the moment, and as he expressed to me, that he does all the work to prepare, but when he steps on set, he doesn't know what he's going to do. And that's the organic nature of being in the moment. That's the nature as an actor of being a great listener, but also being prepared enough that you're actually dropped into the moment and you don't know what you're going to actually actively do or say or how you're going to be. You're going to feel it and be dropped in. And we just work tirelessly to carve out, hopefully, human version that people love of Russ Poole and his commitment to what he believed was right. Having worked with like John Leguizamo or Marissa Tomei in particular, both of them are actors that want as much information and as much background and detail of everything that you can imagine. And then they take it and they soak it in and they absorb it and they prepare. Forrest is more in that realm. Johnny is the opposite in that it's all this spontaneity. But I knew Forrest had a lot of questions and wanted a lot of things from me that Johnny was just not asking. And they're just different in that way. They're very different human beings. They have very different approaches. And my hope and goal was that that would, you know, create some type of energy on screen that would be exciting for us to watch.
How am I supposed to trust a single word that comes out of your fucking mouth?
You look at these walls. I earned everything here. Letters of commendation.
And that's why your son doesn't talk to you.
Johnny Depp was the icon of all icons. You go see a Johnny Depp movie because he's Johnny Depp. And equally, Forest Whitaker. That's the gift they have and that's the beauty, but you want to break down the veneer of it, because if you're just sitting there and you're acutely aware that you're watching Johnny Depp or you're watching Forest Whitaker, then I don't think we're achieving our goal. You want to get lost in the character in this movie. You want to live vicariously through these characters, and you want to get lost into the film. Well, with these two heavyweights, how do you tell a story that's grounded, real, raw, and authentic, and not just sit in a movie and feel like it's fraudulent or fake because you have these two gigantic, you know, heavyweights? So that's when the thought of the execution really dropped in. We worked tirelessly to cast actors who were wonderful character actors that you had seen in movie after movie, but they were almost unrecognizable to you because they would slip in and out of roles. So really creating a fabric around them of not having these other icons, but just great actors that would embody these characters, i.e. these human beings, would flesh out the collective whole of the story. Eyewitnesses, possibly 50 others we found, you know, just keep moving around. Another step in that process was to create an unconventional set environment, meaning typically we're used to shot, reverse shot, and we'll have marks, and the actors have to hit their marks, and you have to pull focus, and you have all these elements of what has to transpire. I removed, not in all of the scenes, but it really in the dance, I would say, between Forrest and Johnny and the dance between the operators and our cinematographer, Monica Lancheska, I created this world where everybody could dance. And the idea was to break the barrier and to shoot Johnny and Forest in a manner that was unconventional, so that essentially the feeling that you would create was less the feeling of a big familiar Hollywood movie. Somewhere docu-style, somewhere cinematic, somewhere fluid. And we would find the movie in the DNA of that and try to, I thought thereby, subconsciously you would watch a movie where the characters felt more dropped in and more real.
The sound of sirens used to mean my brother officers were on their way to assist me. It might have been the sweetest sound I ever heard in my life.
I always want to give the actors the credit. They are the fabric of the whole movie. I just try to make the decisions and put them in the place to do it. And I'm really proud and honored to have worked with the whole cast and these gentlemen in particular.